Let's take a look at a little trick you can do on the Casablanca that creates the pan and scan effect on video stills. We're going to use the add-on program called Columbus 2 to create this effect. I use this trick quite a lot, and once you're comfortable with it, you'll find that it's really easy to use. Advanced users can also use the program CB Paint to do this, but this is another approach. Let's go over to the Edit bin. There are several situations this might be an application you might use in a particular storyboard. In this case, we've got a scene bin that doesn't have too many video clips to create our overall storyboard here. We're going to use the pan and scan effect to take a still and give it the essential visual that we might be moving across the video scene from left to right or top to bottom, or even zooming in, giving us an additional scene with a different motion path. A very common application in many productions. The first thing you want to do is choose your scene in the scene bin that you want to work with. We do want to make sure that the scene that you choose has been trimmed with your trim button to the appropriate endpoint. The still that we're going to create from Columbus is going to come from the first frame of that video scene. So in this case, we might trim this video scene to set up a particular frame that we want to use. And we're going to set it right here at the very beginning of this particular clip. To use Columbus 2, come into Special and scroll alphabetically in your sections of the Special bin north of the white line to the effect package called Columbus 2. In Columbus 2, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your mode is set for the video extension, meaning that we're going to reference a video scene in the scene bin instead of an image pool or using Columbus in the classic mode. Under split video, more than likely you're going to want to leave this set to no. Under quality, you're probably going to want to choose good or high to get a very nice image or a nice graphical still after this animation is complete. In order to use Columbus 2, we essentially just need to go into Start Program. What you're going to see in Columbus is essentially the first frame of that video scene you chose in the scene bin. You may see a previous loaded default animation path in here, and the first thing you want to do is just to get everything set up first, just go down to Default and hit Yes. To create this trick, we only need a couple of modes out of Columbus 2, so we don't have to get overwhelmed by the program. The first thing you want to do is come over here to the mode for Global Settings. Under Global Settings, scroll all the way to the top and choose Line Progression, and turn it off. Also in Global Settings, come down to your Key Object and turn it off. And one more time here in Global Settings, under Head Object, we want to turn the Head Object off. We're essentially turning off some of the parts of the animation we don't want to see on our final still animation clip. You might also want to come down here to the option called Camera. And under Camera, we're going to set up how the camera is going to move across with these two animation points. Some people might want to leave this set to automatic. You'll pretty much only be using zooms when you do that. But you can also switch this to use it manually, so we can actually set up left and right movements on a pan and scan. The one other area you might come back into here when we're in Global Settings is called Time. Time is setting up how long of an animation we're going to create. It always defaults to around the 8-second mark. Now this is your choice. You might choose to start this out as a very short animation at first so you can get an idea of how this is going to work, or you can go ahead and set up your route time to be the proper animation time that you do want to use. Just remember, this is going to take a little bit to render, so if you want to get a good idea of how it's going to look, you might want to try a shorter animation path first so you can see it when we try out on the preview. So we can come back to Time. The other mode that you want to work in here is over here under the Editor area. The Editor area is going to actually allow you to take these different key points and position them on the screen to set up our path. The first thing you can do is select one of these two key points. I'm going to select the end one, and left click and drag it to a particular spot on the video scene. Same thing with the starting point. I'm going to choose to do kind of a left and right path on here. Sometimes you might actually have a little bit of a story in your head of what's going to be told in this particular video scene. In this case, we're going to do a little animation that's going to move from left to right. That way I can tell the story of here are some skiers, and as we pull over to the right, we find out that they're actually having some instruction done. The other area we're going to go to here is called the Camera area. The Camera area is essentially taking the particular key point you had selected and choosing what the camera is going to look like at that particular point. So you'll notice here under the camera area we had the key point, the starting key point, as our selected item here. So when I choose the camera area, we're working with the starting key point. Set your positioning to manual. Now, using your sliders here for zoom and horizontal and vertical, set up how you want to have the first frame viewed on your camera animation path. I'm going to choose to zoom in a little bit, and then using our sliders, I might make this go as far as I can over horizontally. So this tends to be our focus here on the first key point. Go back to your editor area, select your ending key point, and go back to camera. Switch it also to manually, and then adjust your sliders. So now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to move over here, kind of get in a little closer, just left clicking on the sliders to position and adjust what kind of view I'd like to have at this point. There, so now I've set up my ending key point. When I do preview, we're going to get a little bit of a jerky movement here because it is just a preview engine to show you how the animation is going to go. Now I'm ready to create. Before I do so, I might actually recommend this to you. We have the choice here under Archives. We can actually save this as a default path, and you might want to do that if you do use this pan and scan trick a lot. That way you don't have to keep coming into global settings and turning off the head object and the key object on these key points. So under Archives, you might just choose to save this as a pan. Now, whenever you come into Columbus 2, you can load up the default setting of a pan without any of the icons on there, and then readjust and change these key points. You can also do things like pauses or change the path if you wanted to. Entirely up to you, but this is a nice way to start out as a nice default. Again, let's exit back out. And before we close out a special, you want to hit OK, not cancel, and OK will start the rendering process. When this is done, it'll create a new scene to the right of your clip, and you can play it. And here's our pan and scan animation path on a video still. It's only 3 seconds long, so if you find that that worked for you, go back to the original scene, go back under Special, and start your Columbus 2, and go back into Global Settings to change your time and set it up for the appropriate animation length that you would like. So perhaps maybe I wanted to do 10 seconds and render that. The renderings here have been sped up for this demo. So now we have a longer version of a really nice, clean, still animation of a video clip. Something that we couldn't do before in the Casablanca very easily can now be done with this add-on program of Columbus 2. You may wish to add a little extra on your animations, maybe a little second or two longer than you anticipate. That way you can add dissolves so this can move in from one scene into the next with motion animations on them. To see more on Columbus 2, you can check out the new video manual series of Volumes 7 and 8 to see the full coverage of the program. For step-by-steps of this particular tutorial and others, go to www.macrosystem.us, click on Support, and click on the How-Tos section. The Columbus 2 pan and scan trick will be right there for you to print out. This commonly used effect is something you can now do too on your Casablanca video editor.